I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. Today, a real treat. Somebody I just enjoy talking to, and I don't put people on. I don't enjoy talking to you. I have my own deal now, so I can just put on the people I like. I know that sounds selfish, but usually the people I like are really good. And this guy is really good. You've seen this. He's a self-publisher, but this surely would have been any kind of a bestseller. It's all over the world. Empire Beneath the Ice. I'm kind of giving it away. Here's another book. Unearthing the Cloud Eaters. Then we have this True Legend series, which we're going to talk about a way you could get involved. With either online or going to the True Legend series. This is about the giants that really do exist. They talk about it in the Bible. And then this is a pretty good exogenesis. This is talking about, you see the baby, the robot arm, them, turning us into, the human race into robots. And then his latest book that's coming out, that is going to come out, and I'm kind of giving it away. You can see the name down there. Terminated, Steve Quayle. Let's just go on and bring Steve Quayle on. Steve, how's it going? Thanks for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Well, Greg, I'm excited to be with you and with your viewers and listeners, and it's going at the speed of light in my world because, again, so much is happening. I actually wanted that book Terminated out and in everybody's hands by the end of June, but just with 3 phenomenal new announcements on artificial intelligence, which we'll get to, and also the ability to track lineage through bones, not active DNA, through bones, all the way back. And I believe this is probably one of the greatest scientific releases. They've known how to do this, but imagine you could go back to whoever you're related to and check your literal bone signatures against anybody in history. And then if you go back, you can probably take it all the way back to Noah's flood, the period after Noah's flood, not prior to. But the thing is that we had talked about the current events taking place in the newspapers, and I call that now, it's kind of my poor attempt at Latin, but circus distracticus. I believe that this is absolutely the most playpen-like assortment of news coming out that's meant to focus on the minors while keeping our eyes off the major events going on. For instance, you've had Dane Wigington on, and Dane is one of the smartest people I know. We're friends. The geoengineeringwatch.org. If people could understand that the climate manipulation has been an ongoing military endeavor for the past 70 years or more, they begin to understand that you can't just push on planet Earth in the electromagnetic realm without affecting seismicity and earthquakes, etc. Now we're watching Kilauea going off. And Greg, years ago when I started on talk radio, one of my concerns was all the volcanoes of the world coming on, becoming active, the major ones at the same time. And there's a cause and effect here with volcanism and weather changes. Then you get the manipulation of being able to steer, control the jet stream, and you can decide what areas of the planet get water and what areas don't. So the whole idea, and that's why I chose the title Terminated for my book, The End, is because people don't get it. The end of man is here. It wasn't near, and I think the headstone says it all. Greg, read the headstone, because the headstone, I think, is the most succinct thing I can say.
It's 2 headstones in the back of the book, right back here. It's just these 2 headstones. I'll read it to you. It says, here lies the human race who refused to recognize their end when it stared them in the face. It's so you're saying that all this news out there is just really just to distract us for what the real news going on in the background that is going on. If you look at Westworld, you're thinking, there are bad robots, and robots are just like humans, and you could actually transfer your whole body into a robot and live forever. That's what basically the series is saying. I don't know if I buy that. What do you think when you're talking about that? It's not so nice and groovy and cool, is it?
It's not groovy and cool, and obviously the background music, and by the way, it's even more sinister than Westworld, because in my opinion, and this is well researched, this book's 420 pages, but it's not the idea of the book, it's the fact that when you draw a conclusion based on the research that underlies obviously what you're writing about, you've got to come to the one point that the elite have been harping on for 70 years at least now, the decimation of planet Earth, with the exception of them through the category of the elite. I maintain that technology, I'm sorry, I'm shaking the desk here, I get excited. I maintain that technology is literally 1,000 years into the future, because prior to the flood of Noah, there was an incredibly advanced civilization, which many of the ancient legends miss, whether you're talking about Atlantis, Lemuria, Shambhala, all of that, Hyperborea, Ultima Thule. Those things don't just pop out because somebody was on mescaline or legalized marijuana or whatever that is having dreams, visions, or doing microdosing of LSD. These are the recorded annals and histories written in stone by some very bright people. So here's the deal. Circus distracticus. And what is happening, we're seeing that the government, you and I talked about this, I think, on a previous broadcast, they have a department of propaganda. And the head of the DHS says, if you don't believe what, not the head, but one of the spokesmen for it, spokesperson said, if you don't believe in what we're telling you, you must be the tinfoil hat, black helicopter believing people. So here's the thing. A lie is to be embraced in their world, and anything related to the truth is to be denigrated and ultimately destroyed. So when you're looking at all of the different factors taking place in AI, artificial intelligence, by the way, I call that antichrist intelligence, and I'm talking about a supernatural artificial intelligence where there's sentience or a sense of self-awareness, in my opinion, will not be achieved through computer programming. It will be achieved through demon possession. Even the Vatican now is trying to find more exorcists. And by the way, it's not just simply related to the Vatican. People are having meltdowns, and here's the reason why. You can talk about the gates of hell as being a metaphor, but then you can see the people that are expressing what I would call total demonic behavior, whether it's cannibalism, whether it's ritual vampirism, whether it's literal vampirism or zombieism. Pedophilia. And here's the thing, pedophilia, let me make it clear to everybody, that goes back to the Canaanites. In our True Legend series, the DVD series, we're dealing with the Canaanite presence in the Americas, both on the East Coast and South America, North America. And we're talking about the things that precede, 3,000 years ago at the time of, quote unquote, the giants. And by the way, Greg, and this is critical.
Is it 3,000 or more than 3,000 years ago?
More than 3,000 years ago.
Yeah. Before the flood, right?
Yes, sir. Both before the flood and after the flood, because the Bible says there were giants in those days, both before the flood and after those days. And the ones before the flood were bigger. Now, listen, for the first time in history, I have got somebody on record who's got on record, I'm always dealing with this question. Well, if they're really giants, where are all the bones? I've gone back and researched, and with the help of others too, the newspaper articles from the late 1800s into the early 1900s, even to the point in your part of the country where they've found, skeletal remains up to 21 feet. Now, why is this critical? I just said that the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory has proven through a new technology that they can basically look at the proteins in bones, even of deceased people. They don't have to be fresh bones, but they can follow the lineage back. So understand, anything that would give credence or not prove the Bible, but tell people and show people, hey, the Bible's real when it talks about this stuff. The fact that there was a supernatural element in the word xenogenesis, it means adding a third strand of DNA, separate and distinct from either the parent, the husband, or the wife. So when we're talking about transhumanism and the hybrid age, we're already seeing the hybridization of animals, and it's gone beyond growing human ears on a mouse's back. It's gone beyond, Greg, everything that would be sane and even rational. So here's the formula simply for the transhumanists. Mankind that God created, and even some of the people that are atheists who have turned to agnostics, they're getting to the point where, look, their paradigm has painted them into a corner. But the agnostics and the atheists are going to be confronted more and more with the supernatural. And so when you deal with the history of the Third Reich, you held up my book, Empire Beneath the Ice, and notice this. What was it? Last week they're saying, oh, Hitler died in the bunker in Berlin. The Russians have his jawbone. It proves nothing. It's total Bravo Sierra. It's total bull manure. And the fact is that when the History Channel ran their hunting Hitler and all the different authors.
He ended up in Argentina.
He did forgive me. He ended up in Argentina. But I even had a guy whose great-grandfather was with his delegation. They moved him to Peru, too. And Peru has such vast underground citadels, and it's really covered up and covered over. So why am I saying all this? Everything that we're getting right now in the world on AI, on sex robots. Now, listen, when I started talking about that 20 years ago, people just rolled their eyes back, and they thought of inflatable dolls. But if you notice now, they're talking about being able to create stem cells out of skin cells and create sperm and ovum. In essence, they're looking at exo reproduction outside of the human body. They're looking at the pod creatures. In other words, they have to have them in some kind of a contained uterus being pumped full of nutrients. But Greg, from the people I've talked to over the years and being on talk radio 25 years as a host, I know a lot of people. I don't know them personally. The two things I never ask people are their names. I'll ask them what they did and where they are. I say, I don't care about it. Don't use any names to me. And I have a repertoire of stuff that I've been told. And I believe the Bible's pretty clear on this. In the mouth of two or three witnesses, let every word be established. So when my research brings me to the conclusion and these people show up and appear, in my, if you will, visual perceptive field or audio, if they're just calling me on the phone, I have ways of checking stuff out.
Yeah, be careful about hitting the desk. I know you're excited, but
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No.
Go ahead. But you have ways of checking things out, but go ahead.
Yep. I have ways of checking things out. And the thing is that I can only share this with you. There are people out there, there are good people in the intelligence field. There are even good people in the military. However, the ones that I knew in the military have all been, quote, retired courtesy of Obama. One of the things that is critical that people understand is that when you're dealing with singularity, when you're dealing with men becoming machines, when you're dealing with the assimilation of the human genome into the machines, and obviously Star Trek, the Borg, a great thing. When you're dealing with Google becoming Skynet, when you're dealing with autonomous killing machines, there are AK-47s, which is a military rifle, but there are also AKMs, and that's kind of my acronym for automatic killing machines or autonomous killing machines. And now we've seen all of the robotics being fielded. I sent you, Greg, you haven't had a chance to see it, but the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency is even generating robots, if you will, micro drones, micro insects, micro bats to go into every cave, every nook, cranny, every underground, you name it. They want to basically map every underground known place of escape. And they're doing it with robotic insects, robotic reptiles. Imagine that. Everything that you can think of that you can turn into a robot. And then they're sending.
Why would they want to escape? Escape from what?
Escape from what? We know this, that there's going to be so many calamities on the surface of the earth that people, the Bible even talks about the rich men of the earth hiding themselves in the clefts of the rocks, trying to escape what's coming to the earth. But it's not just what's coming on the earth, it's coming up from under the earth. And see, that's what the gates of hell are all about. And people get mad. They want to hear all the cool stuff, but they don't ever want to hear about God. They never want to hear about Jesus. Well, that's just your truth. That's just your paradigm. Oh, really? If the Bible's telling us what's coming to pass, and it's coming to pass as it is, even the ancient aliens guys have to refer to the apocalypse of St. John, the book of Revelation. So, the idea in all this to control the knowledge base of what's under the ground, the caves. And by the way, Greg, I sent you that. I think it's a 28-page report from DARPA itself. So when we're done with the interview, take a look at it. Yeah. But the reason this is critical is that at some point, the devil wants the termination and the extinction of every last man, woman, and child on the planet. And he's promising those who have gone into a relationship with him that if they sign up with him, they'll have eternal life, they'll have eternal pleasure, they'll have plenty of the planet to rule for their own kingdoms. And there's just one problem. You got to get rid of all those people that don't want to become part of the Luciferian New World Order. And I think one of their spokesmen said this, it's been quoted numerous times, but by consent or by conquest, there will be a New World Order.
Well, this is why I'm going to bring it back into today's thing. They're having the G7 meeting over in Canada. I believe it's in Canada. Anyway, they're having the G7 meeting, and they're all attacking Trump. Well, all those nations are down with the New World Order. And America is America first. I mean, Trump is America first. Oh, that messes up their deal. Oh, my gosh. Plus all the fraud that he's exposing, the Iran deal he pulled out of that. Total fraud. Nobody signed it. Nobody signed it. That's a statement of fact. That's not a crazy time, tinfoil hat thing. Nobody signed that fraud. Paris Climate Accord, out. Trans-Pacific Partnership, out. Borders, closed. He is their nightmare, Donald Trump. Is that right?
Well, yeah.
That's some counter-attacking to this New World Order, right? I mean, that's what they're all upset about.
Well, they're upset about because something interrupted what they thought was their smooth entrance into the future with no resistance. And God always has provides his ram in the bush. That simply means that when there's no way out, God will give us a way out. And I also believe that it's a time of reflection. The reason I supported Trump and support President Trump is because when I saw who hates him, and they're the same people that hate me, the same people that control all the news, Greg, that control you on YouTube, that control me and everybody else trying to just tell people what's going on. That's why they've resorted to the elite, to the electromagnetic warfare that is against all of us through the televisions, the smart TVs, the smartphones. When we talked about
So wait. So I'm going to get in here with you. I'm sorry. When you talked about, hold that thought. When we talked about, so you said, oh my gosh, look at the people that hate Donald Trump. I like him. That's what you're telling me?
Absolutely.
Who are the people that hate him, and why? And give me the list of people that tipped you off to saying, oh my gosh, these people hate him. I like Donald Trump. Go ahead.
Well, pretty much everybody in the Obama administration, everybody who was any of the think tank people, everybody who was ever a globalist, everybody who was secretaries of defense, let's just say this, it was everybody other than a few voices. Basically, one of the strongest voices out there was Ron Paul, and followed by Rand Paul. Rand Paul tells the truth. And he's one of the few that does. Look at Trey Gowdy. I used to think that guy was okay. And then, basically now he's saying, anything the FBI. By the way, I want to share something with your listeners and your viewers. Lawlessness is what's in the there we go again. Lawlessness is what is rampant in the United States. If the Department of Justice is withholding from the Congress documents that they were supposed to have released, if the FBI is covering up the greatest collusion against a presidential candidate who is now president, if you've got the national security advisors under Obama, the head of the CIA, the head of DIA, the head of everything, national security advisor Susan Rice, all these people, they were all against him. And remember the mocking. And when you got the shills from hell, the mainstream media, ABC, NBC, CBS, in my opinion, all hating on him. I mean, you'd expect Rob Reiner and The View to obviously not like anything. And then you see the background of the Soros-funded movements. I mean, we've got, in essence, you see people being arrested who are doing no violence, and those who are violent being released back on the streets. So the judicial system under this country hangs by a thread, and people have got to understand that, in my opinion, things change after Donald Trump. Do I believe he'll get reelected? Yes. Do I think everything goes to hell faster even during the second period of his presidency? Yes. But again, it'll be the best of times during the worst of times, and it's really a tale of two countries, not a tale of two cities.
You were going to go say, we have talked about in the past, and before I interrupt you, because I wanted that thought to get out about why you like Donald Trump, not politically, just because of the people that hate him. And then you were saying we've talked about in the past about I know transhumanism. That's what your conference is coming up. That
Right.
you talked about that. You talked about this merging of robotics and humanoids, and you
Well,
get
tell
rid
me
of.
what, yeah, and this is rhetorical. Tell me what's more important to people than extinction of them, slavery of them. The word privacy no longer exists. The word individuality is being challenged. Somehow the glob, the goo, the blob, by the way, the blob was one of the first, black and white TV movies where an alien creature comes and absorbs everything into it, eats them. The thing is that they all hate individuality, but more than that, they hate God. They're actually in open rebellion, and look, I make no apologies that people don't have to believe that the Bible's real. I do. Everything I've done, writing 11, 12 books and being on 25 years on talk radio, 9,000 hours of interviews and broadcasts. I've been ahead of the curve in trying to show people that God loves his creation. He wants to warn them ahead of time. But you know what, Greg? You know this as well as I do. You can warn and warn and warn, and people scorn and scorn and scorn. You can talk and talk and talk, and they mock and mock and mock. And then you've got the biggest power brokers on the planet that control the money of the world, and they decide, quote, who are the kings and who are the peasants. And I think it should be obvious with the destruction of the middle class. I'm grateful for, the turnaround in the job market, but it's got to filter down. You cannot have the middle class being in such debt as we are now, especially student debt. We've got car debt, automobile debt at all-time highs. Everybody knows that, but the problem is it takes more to do away with debt. And in my opinion, you can never balance a budget. You got to have a jubilee, cut it fresh to the core and say, we're starting over. You cannot pay off the debt, both on the books and off the books that, exist now.
I think that when Donald Trump is reelected, like a lot of people think he will be, that's when he does something with the debt. He's going to get us to the year 2021, I believe. And boy, rich people are going to take a hit because they put their money in bonds. But I wanted to come back to one thing about individualism. I'm not a Bible scholar by any stretch of the imagination. You know a lot about the Bible. And I believe in the Bible. I'm a Christian, but I'm not a scholar. But one thing when you talk about individualism, I mean, one of the things that pops out about what God thinks about individualism is the quote, even the hairs on your head are counted. That's individualism.
Oh,
you're so important to God that I know you. I knew you before the womb. Even the hairs on your head are counted. That is a phenomenal statement. That is
agreed. The 139th Psalm. Listen, God states in this, and I went out and actually researched it. You can look it up on a net search, but he said, more numerous than the sand in the sea, so are my thoughts towards you. He's not talking collectively. He's not talking generously, in generalities. He's talking specifically to those who he's created. Before, when you were in your mother's womb, I knew you. That's 139th Psalm. And what's interesting, Greg, there's 450,000 grains of average beach sand and a handful of sand, okay? Actually, somebody calculated that. And so the point being is that God is so specifically in tune with each and every individual that we are special. That's where the word special creation comes in. It stands in diametric opposition to the fact that we're all to be assimilated into this glob of glue, the board. And for the record, we don't stand as massive humanity before the judgment seat of the living God. We stand individually. What? Know ye not that ye shall give account? See, when you divorce mankind from its creator, when you divorce, and I'm talking the creator, biblical God. Now, as somebody who writes, look, I'm not a Bible scholar, I'm a researcher. There's a difference. The absolute tracks that I guess I'd followed in being directed, which I believe I have been, ahead of time, have all come from the scripture. The words of Jesus stand above all. This is one statement. You don't think Jesus knew what he was talking about? And I'm saying that, of course, we do. But when he said, if the days weren't shortened, there'd be no flesh left alive. Yet for the elect's sake, those days are going to be shortened. Now, who are the elect? The elect are those who choose to come to God on his terms through Jesus Christ. Now, people say, well, you got to leave religion out of politics and politics out of religion. I will share this. That's not true. Because when you're seeing all the Petigate information, when you're seeing all of the occult rituals, when you're hearing all the witchcraft, the Satanism, the Luciferian, the blood ritual, and by the way, abortion is a sacrament of hell. It is a sacrament of hell. Just as there is, can I say, it's innocent blood. And the fact that this country didn't care. Now, look, there are people that cared. Thank God for the people that stand up against it. But to most people, it just isn't a big issue. Yet the same people that were behind the agenda to kill the innocent in the womb are the ones that are going to be behind the agenda and are already implementing that over the world. Look at the slaughter of Christians in the Middle East. So what I'm saying is, imagine a robot programmed. And you know what the final command given to a robot will be, in my opinion? When they become totally autonomous, demon-possessed, they will have simply one prime directive, and that will be kill all humans. And if you think that's crazy, then remember, the people that are working the hardest funding the robotics behind the scenes aren't just the big universities like MIT and Lawrence Livermore and whoever. MIT is primarily robotics. But it's the war-making capability, autonomous killing machines. What happens then when you introduce into an autonomous killing machine a disembodied spirit? And people say, well, I don't believe in that. You better, because the whole world does. You can take non-westernized cultures, any place in the world, and this is what I've spent 45 years of my life studying, and they believe in good spirits and evil spirits. So they know the difference between what is acceptable as good and what is acceptable as evil. And those who didn't, they simply get wiped out.
Well, I want to talk about your conference. You've wildly popular conference. You're having it in Branson, Missouri. I believe it's in September. Is it 4? I got my notes right here. I had my prep notes. It's September 14th through 16th. You're also going to. I think it's sold out. I mean, when you told me about it, I thought, oh my gosh, you're almost sold out. You should have got a bigger venue. 3,000 seats have sold out, but you're going to be talking about your book, which comes out in July. I want to talk about your book a little bit. I mean, you've been talking about your book, I know that. But your book, let's start there. Your book comes out in July, Terminated. How do you get a hold of this book?
Well, you can pre-order it on my website, stevequayle.com. But let me clarify something. We have about another 300 admission tickets available to Branson. And Branson, is the reason we chose a venue is because it's in the mansion in Branson. And people who can't make it, and people from all over the world, I encourage you to live stream. This is the biggest transhumanism and hybrid conference in the world, literally. And we're bringing people in from China. We've got some interesting people. One of them, obviously, is Hugo de Garis, who's on our website. That'll be there. One of the smartest men in the world when it comes to human brains and artificial brains. He wrote The Artilect War, and we'll have everybody there from Tom Horn, who is basically in my opinion, one of the best speakers, and who has a grasp. By the way, Tom Horn and I, this I guess is a feather in a cap. We were just considered by the elite to be, you'll love this, Greg, the leaders of the transhumanist resistance movement. Can you believe that? 28. Yeah,
that's 28. I mean, listen. They just confirmed that what you're talking about is real. That's what they just did. They confirmed what you're talking about is real, because this can't be known about. Everybody will go, oh, that's not a good idea. Hold on a minute. Wait a minute. And that's why, that Elon Musk got all this stuff. What was he saying, that they will destroy humanity? Elon Musk,
yes.
Did he come out early on and say that? And what happened to his company? It's crashing. What happens to his autonomous cars? They're crashing. All of a sudden, Tesla, went from the darling of an industry to, oh my God, the car's on fire. There's an employee asleep behind the wheel going down the road. I mean, they're destroying him, right?
Well, yeah, but again, remember this. I maintain that there's a supernatural demonic presence. And by the way, a demon is a disembodied spirit that had to have been embodied in something at some time. And the Bible teaches about it, and obviously Jesus casts out the demons, evil spirits. Now, why is this important? I said something early on, and this is why it's critical that people who cannot get a ticket to the conference, and it's in Branson, Missouri, September 14th through the 16th. But it's important that they live stream. They can live stream. And with the live streaming, they can watch last year's conference for free. Last year, Greg, we have a limit to how many people we can live stream. But last year, 6 weeks before the conference, the live streaming went bonkers. So we're trying to make sure we can get all of the people accommodated. And the people that have gone there, they love it. The speakers are definitely cutting edge. And I'm going to have some stuff there that's going to be pretty astonishing, because imagine taking genetic material. Everybody talks about a woolly mammoth. What happens if you have Goliath, or you take some of the giants in history like King Og, or you take any of the things that had 21-foot skeletons found in the Midwest of the United States? What happens if there's viable DNA of those available, and you inculcate it or you introduce it into a host body? What happens to the body of the host? Well, all this stuff is related to transhumanism. The word transhumanism, or H plus, means God did not do a good job when he created mankind, even for those people that would say, yeah, I'll give you that, but he screwed up. Why are there wars? Why do the innocent suffer? Well, the point is that the reason there are wars and the innocent suffer is because of another entity called the devil, a Luciferian, Lucifer. So Lucifer became Satan. Well, people don't believe that, yet how come when Hollywood just comes out and says, hey, we're having a satanic meeting, or we're all Luciferians, or they go on to accept an award and say, Hail Lucifer, they're certainly not saying Hallelujah Jesus, or they bleep it. You know, they seriously would. So Branson is unlike anything in the world, okay? Timothy Alberino's going to be there, and coming back, by the way, from one of the most remarkable, and I say too much, but one of the most remarkable finds in ancient history, David Knight of InfoWars. David's probably got one of the best handles on the collective transhumanism movement. He's interviewed Hugo de Garis and others. He's basically, transhumanists are saying this: we don't want to die, we want to live forever. And that's what Satan promised Adam and Eve in the garden, first through Eve: ye shall not surely die, ye shall be as gods. So transhumanism means this: when man achieves godhood, and singularity means when he has access to all the known information in the world. And my answer to that is, what happens if somebody comes with information you don't know? You know, they used a closed system with a forever promise that may not be realized. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can go on my website, or you go on Gen6, GENSIX.com, and all the information, True Legends of Conference. And Greg, I'd like you and your wife to come to this, because it's not just rattling. These are people that are respected. Richard Dolan is going to be there, and Richard Dolan's one of the world's experts on off-planet. You see, here's the trouble I have and others have. When you see the future, you know the future, or God reveals it to you. I'm not a psychic, and I'm not a prophet. But when God gives you an understanding, it's kind of like the road to Emmaus, when two guys are walking with Jesus after the resurrection, and then the scripture says, the Bible says, then opened he their eyes. My prayer is that this conference will open people's eyes, because all the baloney, okay, I caught myself, for Greg Hunters, I caught myself, all of that is designed to keep your eyes off of their esteemed prize, and that is the death and decimation of all humanity. I've gone on for 20 years on talk radio, so are other hosts. This isn't just exclusive to me, quoting all the industrials, quoting all the billionaires, you know, vaccinations. And by the way, in the book that Greg held up, Terminated, the end of mankind, the thing that I get into too is, why did all these, the end of man is here. The thing that is critical is I get into why all the doctors, all the naturopaths, all these people are being destroyed. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the Bible talks about the mark of a beast. And what happens when that mark of the beast has a mutagenic ability? That means it has the ability to change your DNA. Well, that's why, Greg, in my opinion, a lot of these famous molecular biologists, microbiologists, especially biological weapons guys, have been offed, and women. They're being murdered, and they have been consistently murdered in order to keep the knowledge that they possess from being able to finger the people that are behind it. And there are people that really want you and everybody else dead but them.
Steve, the conference is in Branson, Missouri, in September 14th through 16th. That'll be live streaming. I imagine it'll be hours and hours. You got the stages loaded up. There's going to be, 6, 7, 8 hours a day of stuff.
Yes,
for people to see.
8 hours. And we don't do, like some conferences, they have 30 speakers, and you go, basically 31 flavors of ice cream. This is the people that have written, that have basically been hailed by others as some of the smartest people. I'm fortunate. I get to hang out with a lot of people smarter than me, Greg. So by osmosis, I pick it up. And I don't claim smartness. All I claim is obedience. I believe for all the years I've been doing this, people can't say, well, hey, Quayle never told us this. No, they can mock it, they can scorn it, they can, make all the references they want. But the thing is, this, you get flack when the minute you say you're a Christian, and I salute you and God bless you for your stand, you're not ashamed of Jesus. But that somehow makes us inferior, and well, we just can't listen to those guys. I was on with George Norrie, and God bless people who heard that broadcast. And by the way, if you want, go to my website, stevequayle.com, and there's this banner there for George. I gave it up on my own volition. He didn't pay for it, nor did he solicit it. But he has been, if you realize it, he's allowed alternate viewpoints and the Christians to be heard also. There's a lot of other stuff that goes on there, but vote for him because he really does, in my opinion, deserve to be inducted into the Radio Hall of Fame. So the idea is that we're now in this time period where anything goes, Greg. And the reason Branson is so critical is because last year I think we had 145 nations live streaming this. It may have been two or three people in some, but there are thousands of people. So here's the deal: this is a message that has to get out, and it really does. Income tax, that really isn't a big deal when you understand that everything is in your food, everything that's in your vaccinations, everything is designed to do one thing. Basically to kill you gently, some not so gently, and to basically take your life away, but charge you along the way. So we're an indebted nation, and we're indebted, and I think it's Thanatos or Thanatos in Greek, the Greek word for death. So, we're in a place now where we're seeing the plans of the elite absolutely in our face, and then you get what I call the G6 throwing a temper tantrum. And look at how messed up, I want to be politically correct for this broadcast, some words just fit, but let's use messed up, that you've got, look at what has happened to Britain, throwing people in jail for even speaking. Look at what's happened in Germany. Germany's toast, and it should really make people wonder, with all the shenanigans that went on between the Obama administration and Iran. There's no truth. Here's the point: there is no truth in the publications that are controlled by the Illuminists or globalists. There's only agenda.
Well, they're having the Bilderberg meeting right now. They're not even covering it. It's a huge meeting, not being covered on the mainstream media. The Bilderberg meeting.
Yeah, and that's why they call them shadow masters, okay? That's why they call them the shadow government. That's why they call them. Listen, Jesus said, give me control. Not Jesus said that. The love of money is the root of all evil. Not money, but the love of it. And the banking cartel globally and from time beginning said, hey, we control the money, we control the people, we control the food. And I want to share this. People better understand this global volcanism is a critical issue now because it's going to affect the growing systems. You're going to see food rising in prices. You're going to see, just eat this new cockroach soup already being proposed. Oh, you really don't need pure water. Drink your own urine. Oh, by the way, if you live in California, wash your clothes on one day and, take a bath the next. And gee, we need an appropriation for 8 million more illegal immigrants. Now, I'm all for legal immigration. I'm also for biological checks on the immigrants. I coined a term years ago. Before Dane, I met Dane. I wrote a book called Weather Wars and Unnatural Disasters. But I coined a term too, infectons, infections, people who are, tons, who are, what's the word I want? They're, if you will, almost vaccinated assassins. They can be vaccinated against the pathogen that they carry. So it's important that people understand that what you don't know can kill you, is killing you. And the good news is that God promised that to those who call upon his name, listen, he's real. I wouldn't be alive today if the living God were not real. And I thank everybody who prays, and prays for you, Greg. There are people that are out there that God called them to do nothing but pray for us. And God, I think it's important that people understand this. Now, look, I'm not rambling. The True Legends Conference, Transhumanism in the Hybrid Age, I don't think there will be a more concise or I would say this, a finer presentation for the hour. And I'll even tell you this. I was on Greg Hunter's show. What was it, Greg? Did we do our show in Antarctica a year ago?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
something like that. Remember what I said? I said, you watch it. We'll all turn to Mars. What was a big announcement the other day?
Going to
That
Mars.
NASA, it was Mars. And now I'll tell you something else. That is like giving you one little smidgen of truth. And it's so far beyond that. I've interviewed people that one of my friends, Greg Evenson, just passed away. One day before he died, he and I had our last conversation, and he was a brave man, former Green Beret, former, just a amazing guy, Space Command. But you know what our subject matter was? This is a dying man's last talk with me, was Mars. And I can't even release it right now, what we talked about. You know why, Greg? No one will believe it yet. They will very soon. So from Mars, look, they're going to start claiming they're finding more ancient civilizations. As the volcanoes and the earthquakes go off here, expect to see more cataclysms in our immediate solar system. They're already talking about finding life forms in Enceladus. They're already talking about there may be primitive life forms. What they're going to do, they're going to tie the Martian bacteria ultimately into Antarctica, and they're going to bring us to the point that the Catholic Church is already anticipating that the aliens, i.e., those aliens, not illegal aliens, created us. So people can
And
say,
you know that's a huge lie. But that's a big lie. You said that before. That's a huge lie.
It is a lie. But what is the basis of deception? Deception usually takes hold when they give you a little truth, but it's not the little truth they give you. It's the lot of lie that kills you. So this transhumanism, and again, Greg, if you were to say to me, Steve, what's on your horizon beyond transhumanism and the hybrid age? I can say to you at this point, nothing. Because when they say it's going to be by 2030, 2045, Greg, in my opinion, let's see if it holds. If it doesn't, just write me off. But if it does, you better listen to why I'm presenting this. My guesstimate estimate, based on where we're at versus knowing where we're really at, is there will start to manifest fully by 2022. And what will manifest fully by 2022 are automatons that they'll say this person, they'll already be demon possessed. And by the way, a demon possessed machine is no different than any form of magic around the world where specific inanimate objects become animated. Even in Greek mythology, you've got Talos, T-A-L-O-S. So the first robot was 250 BC. How can that be? Why are all the robots? They start out as a loving robot. The first robot, basically is the one that really took the world by storm was Metropolis, Fritz Lang's movie. And so at the True Legends of Conference Transhumanism and the Hybrid Age, I'll be presenting a very unusual, my part of the talk will be on robotics prepping us for the time when machines truly become spiritual, but not in the way that Ray Kurzweil says, but they will be inhabited by sentient entities that were disembodied that now have become embodied, and that's what's going to control the robot warriors of the future. And remember, my opinion is the final command given to a robot by whoever, the devil that possesses them or the demons, will be kill all humans.
And you think this is going to start in earnest, not by 2030 or 2040, 2022. You
2022 to 2025.
Robots will start taking over.
Yes, and taking over. Listen, you and I right now, our identities are already assimilated into an algorithmic program, a mathematical formula that knows that, hey, Greg likes blue shirts. By the way, great tie, genuine compliment. And that Steve likes sweaters and, high top shirts, whatever these things are called. So everything we think, do, and say, every website, all that we do is being fed into if you will, a catalog and a database. And it doesn't matter if it's the blinking of our eyes, our corneas, our retinas, our pupils, our fingerprints, our gait, your gait and my gait, the way we walk, is already known to them. My thermal image, your thermal image, it's all known. So everything that they can do, and now they can digitally compose us and put Greg Hunter and Steve Quayle in a meeting with Loretta Lynch on the runway. No, that was Bill Clinton, wasn't it?
Yeah,
No, I'm just saying that, that wasn't fake. So the point is, and I keep saying the point, you've got to understand that they want us, human beings, dead. That's why they're crossing the species barrier, the hybrid. They're combining human and animal DNA. I was almost going to say humanals. And we need more hymnals and less humanals, but humanimals. And they're going to start selling, and again, Greg, I'll be very tactful here, but sex bots will bring about, to either the male or female, it will bring about a total end to biological reproduction, except for the elite, okay? Hey, they've been marrying their cousins and their sisters and brothers. I'm talking about the royal bloodlines for years. That probably won't stop. But they will define who can have children and who cannot. And beyond that, that will kind of be the throwaway. Okay, we're still going to keep human. But behind that, they'll insert, they'll inject, they will broadcast, they will mutate in any way, shape, or form they can, so that we break the boundaries as a human creation by the living God, and they'll then basically try and put something in place of them. By the way, let me make this clear. The word Antichrist doesn't mean against Christ. It means in place of Christ. Jesus said, he came and we received him not. Another will come claiming he's Jesus, and him you're going to be receiving. Well, there's going to be everybody from, guys landing in spaceships, wrong. They will land, to everything that you can see in science fiction and the history of science fiction. That stuff came from someplace. People say, oh, it's just man's imagination. The history of the world will tell you that dreams and visions many times are always attributed to either drug use or also sleeplessness, tiredness, weariness, but an altered state in the human consciousness. So did God give us a spiritual center for our brain? Yeah, I guess too many of us are sitting on it, though. The point is that's my attempted humor. The idea is that if you don't speak up, stand up, and get the information. Information is key. God said his people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And I want to make this clear. This True Legends, the conference, Transhumanism in the Hybrid Age, it's not a, quote, exclusive Christian presentation. Timothy Alberino, Tom Horn, and I but we've got speakers there who don't share our persuasion, but their information is valid. So I believe we're giving a balanced presentation of all the different viewpoints that can be consolidated on transhumanism in the hybrid age. So, I'm not threatened. I think I can defend my position. I think that the books I've written, and again, Greg, you held up Xenogenesis. Xenogenesis is one of the most important books anybody can read. When I wrote Genetic Armageddon, I think I'm the guy that used that word the first 15 years, Xenogenesis. If you turn it over, Greg, or read it, if you'd read the back of it, just define what Xenogenesis is. It's second or third paragraph. You have your...
Yeah, hold on just a minute here. Can't find my glasses. Well, you know what? I have my glasses here. Oh, here they are. I covered them up with some other stuff that I'm showing up on. The horrifying future targeted God's original creation.
Yeah, Xenogenesis.
Xenogenesis, the production of offspring entirely different from either the parents transformed through the addition of DNA from an alien animal. Hold on, I'll put you in here too. From an alien animal or to normal genetics of human being. The results will be comic book superheroes come to life, living creatures with mythical abilities unlike anything mankind has seen for thousands of years, and which inspired the ancient legends of gods and goddesses. That's what it is.
That's a mouthful, but the bottom line is that mythology and legends, what they used to claim were myths and legends, those same creatures are coming back, and they're going to come back in what I would call a hyper Hollywoodized version, not meaning on the film, but every machination, every manipulation, every combination will be used to obscure God's original creation.
Steve Quayle, the book, which is coming out in July, which is a nice, a nice precursor to your conference in September. The September conference, the True Legends conference, the transhumanism conference in Branson, Missouri. There's only a few hundred tickets left, but you can live stream it. Steve Quayle, thanks a lot for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Thank you, Greg.